to another episode of the Above the Airwaves podcast. I am your host, Stephen Cocaine, and with me, as always, is Tony Tran.
Greetings, y'all.
And joining us today, we have the majestically stern but fair Miss Tali.
It's Tali, but cool.
Tali.
Like a tally mark. Or tally ho.
Tally ho, okay.
Yeah, I got called that one a lot. Tally the ho, too.
Well,
because you farmed.
That's
No.
just... I mean, you could go old school with it and be like, Tally the rake.
Oh, I like that.
I was really skinny as a kid.
Well,
I mean, that's not what we're going to rake.
rake meaning
yes,
a...
yeah. Okay, I get it now.
You know,
All right, there we go.
Shakespearean rake?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's up in the air. Anyway, today we are going to be taking a look at the latest entry into the hopefully long-going John Wick series.
Yeah.
John Wick Chapter 2, starring Keanu Reeves.
Now, we haven't actually decided what we wanted to call John Wick Chapter 2. We've gone through the air for a little bit. We've decided on The Wickening, Wick 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I think it was Electric Wickaloo.
Oh, yeah.
John 2 Wick.
Yeah.
That was another one.
John the Wickerman.
Yeah. I mean, really, there's so many options for John Wick Chapter 2. And the best part is they just say it's Chapter 2. They don't give you the title of Chapter 2.
Yeah.
So as far as we know, it could be like, you know, John Wick Chapter 2 Goblet of Fire? Or was that 3? I don't know.
I don't know, but somebody put
Goblet
his...
of Fire was number 4.
Did you put your name in the goblet? I can't even say it out loud. It's so bad.
Yes. Put your name in the hat.
All right. So, John Wick 2, we're going to start with the trailer real fast, and then we'll discuss our opinions about the movie and give you a rough rundown of what happens and maybe a quick
We are going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but no guarantees. So this is your warning right now that if you haven't seen this movie, spoilers may happen, and we have no regrets.
Yes. That's all you guys. Let's do this.
You working? Right, so.
How good to see you again so soon, Mr. Wick.
I need you to do this task. I'm not that guy anymore.
You are always that guy, John.
I can't help you.
You know the rules. If you don't do this, you know the consequences.
Accounts payable, how may I help you?
I'd like to open an account.
Name on the account?
John Wick.
The contract has gone international. You have no idea what's coming.
Somebody please get this man a gun.
You stabbed the devil in the back. To him, this isn't vengeance. This is justice.
You working?
Afraid so. Whoever comes, I'll kill them. I'll kill them all. Of course you will. I'll try and do the same.
Now, one thing that I absolutely loved about this movie was that they brought back a lot of even the minor characters that appeared in the first movie, like John Leguizamo's character, and the fact that they expanded on a lot of the other characters that existed in the first movie. Like, I'm still waiting to get Lance Reddick's backstory. You know, he's the concierge at the Continental in New York.
Which makes me wonder, like, is he like the concierge? Because like there's a Continental in Rome that he goes to. That's not important to the plot of the storyline, but like there's somebody else that's the concierge there.
Well, the New York Continental is the primary Continental.
Is it? Because like they never really like.
Because the manager of the New York Continental, played by Ian McShane, is basically the head of the Continental. I mean, he controls literally everything regarding it, even going so far as to set up John Wick with the Continental and everything that he needs when he gets to Rome.
You see, but like watching that film, I didn't get that feel. I got more of a feel that he simply ran that chapter of the Continental, and that he had a lot of pull and power in the area. But like, I didn't get the feel that he was also running the Continental in Rome. Like, at no point did anybody in Rome defer to the New York Continental, and so. It's like, oh, it's like blah 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 said you were coming down here, as if that was the powers that be, or let me inform blah 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 that you have arrived.
So my thing was the first dude, whatever the crap his name is, the manager of the New York Continental.
Yeah.
Ian McShane's character, Winston.
Winston, thank you. I got the vibe that Winston started the whole Continental thing. Like, the first one, he's like grandfather. And he started and then put other people in charge of his, like, franchised it. So he still owns and runs, but he has them in somebody else's hands.
Yeah, I mean, like, it felt like that to the point to where, like, even like in the movie they give his code because everyone has like a reference number if they're
And
like assigning a hit or a kill, and you hear his reference number is 11111. So like it's the prime number, it's the beginning number, but like at no point do you really. Like, does it lay the groundwork that this is the guy? Like, no one is really reverent enough to him anywhere else outside of that one area.
The thing that gives me the impression that he kind of runs everything is that if you look at the building architecture, the style, decor, everything of the New York Continental, and then compare that to when they're calling in accounts, even though those are all international, they're all going out international, everything else, the building decor matches the Continental in that room that they're, calling in all the different accounts and stuff like that. So it leads me to believe that it may not be the head Continental, but it's definitely, I mean, he may not control all of the Continental, but he definitely controls the headquarters.
See, like, I would normally agree with you, except for the fact that the two times, and the third time, including the first movie, but the two times in this movie where we actually get to see the switchboard, they were both made from New York. So, like, the first was from New York, and then the second it was from New York, so it's a New York switchboard. It was never transferred internationally.
I think the second call, the one that's made by Santino, is his name?
D'Antonio, whatever.
Yeah, Santino D'Antonio.
Yeah.
When he makes the call, I think he actually makes that call from Rome.
No,
though.
he was never in Rome. He was in New York. He sent John to go to Rome.
Oh, you're right, because he was at the museum.
Yeah, and then once John finished his mission, they came back to New York where he got his anointhood.
I could be wrong, but I get the impression that it's like
they definitely try to impress that, but they don't hardwire it with facts of any sort, and so it kind of bothered me.
And there are a couple of scenes in this movie that make me feel like the whole underground world of assassins, everybody that's related to him and everybody that works for him, is a lot larger than we've even seen.
Yeah.
Primarily towards the end of the movie, when John Wick is talking to Winston, and they're at that scene, Winston has everybody stop.
Yeah.
And there's literally hundreds of people standing around right there to show that, hey, all these people work for him. Like, that's there were easily 500 people, give or take, that all stopped in that whole scene. I mean, huge, wide established shot that everybody stops in,
All right, so before we get any deeper, let's go ahead and start with the general rundown without any huge spoilers, I guess. Steve, if you want to give it to him.
This is kind of, it's a continuation of the first movie. It doesn't really try and be a sequel in the sense that it's, the bigger, better new story. It picks up right where the last one left off. I mean, you could even realistically imagine that this picks up, the next day.
I'd say
it doesn't feel like there has to be a gap.
I feel like it was at least a month because he required time to heal.
Yeah, that was my only thing. Was
yeah,
healing.
but at the same time, it doesn't try to establish that there's a gap.
Yeah,
say. It doesn't emphasize the point that there's a gap, so you could view it either way.
Yeah, it wasn't Weekend at Bernie's 1 and 2, where it was a week later, but clearly it was 3 years later.
Yeah, this was, they just kind of pick it up and they go.
Yeah.
And it's the natural progression. First, Keanu he's getting his car back.
Which I'm glad they touched base with that, because they never really discovered where the car went after the first movie.
We actually have a clip of an interview. I think it's the first clip we have here with Keanu, where he's talking about setting up the movie and where they went with it.
Is it the playing John Wick or the premise?
It's the playing John Wick, or no, it's the premise. I think.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with that clip real fast so you can get a feel for the beginning of this.
Where does this story start? And basically it was, well, let's get his car back. So the film opens with John getting his car back. And in terms of exploring the mythology, we're kind of continuing it. We're going deeper into it. Chad has a lot of, what are the connections? What is the world of the Continental? We go international with the Continental. We bring in the idea of the high table, that even beyond the layer of the Continental, there's the high table.
So, at the beginning of this movie, they did a really good job of, continuing the microcosm of, John Wick legend, where, it's basically the same thing as the first movie. The dude who has his car is pull up our roots, pull everything up, we got to get out of here. And the guy comes up and is like, why, what's going on? It's like, my nephew just died and my, brother just died and we got to run. It's like, why? Because my nephew stole a car and killed a dog. It's like, well, why is that important? They belong to John Wick.
Yeah. And again, you get the guy that goes, oh. Everybody just knows who John Wick is, and that this is,
And, they did a pretty good job of that microcosm of revenants in the beginning of this movie, and once John goes to Rome, which we'll explain later. But, outside of those small events, it feels like nobody else is aware of John Wick, and that bothered the hell out of me.
Well, I think it's not necessarily that they aren't aware, it's that I think there's a level of ego that exists in the assassin underworld, where outside of it, when you've got, just the gangsters and the mobsters and stuff like that, like the Russian mob that, he's going to get his car back from at the start of the movie, they have that almost fear of the persona of John Wick. But once you get into the world of assassins, everybody thinks of John Wick more as an equal colleague, or a colleague than as this guy on a pedestal that's untouchable.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense now that you say it like that, because really it comes down to the fact that these mobsters hire the assassins because the assassins are better at what they do, and so that it makes more sense that they're more afraid of John Wick than anybody else. Although he's a known factor in his work, it's kind of like Gates talking about Jobs. It's like, it's like, but outside of their field, there's more reverence, but inside the field, I can see that.
There's a respect that they all have for each other, but at the same time, if you think about the way that these assassins are going to have to work, there's you can't be the assassin that goes, well, I'm okay, I'm pretty good, and I'll probably get that job done. I think I might be able to do it. You have to be the guy that's going to be like, no, I'm the one to pick. Pick me and I'll take him out, no problem.
But if that is the case, I would have liked at least one other person talked in such a hushed voice as John Wick was. They could have been in Rome and in a random party. It was like, did you hear about whatever Il Duce?
Yeah. Well, I think with that, there's also the fact that John Wick had been retired, and we don't know how long he was retired for in the first movie. So when you've got all these assassins coming in here, there's
I thought it was 5 years.
Was it 5 years?
I thought they mentioned something about him only getting 5 years with his wife.
Well, I figured it was long enough for at least one vacation to the beach.
Yeah.
And then and then maybe a anniversary because of the bracelet. That's all I had.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't really establish exceptionally well how long he was retired. I mean, we don't know if he ended up retiring halfway through his relationship with his wife,
right?
Or if he retired, a decade before his relationship with his wife, because he was pursuing her and he just finally got married, and they were married for 5 years before she died.
That's a good point.
So that's kind of up in the air. So if you look at it that way, you've got the old school assassins, like the one played by Common, who they know John Wick, but they think that they're just as good or better than John Wick. And then you've got the newer brash assassins
Ruby
like
Rose.
Ruby Rose, who they know of John Wick. And they have some mutual respect, but, you know, he's the guy that came out of retirement, and they're the newest hot shit.
Yeah.
Right.
New hotness, busted old asses.
And it's not exactly like he could practice while in retirement.
Yeah.
So.
And John Wick doesn't, like, it's Keanu Reeves. He doesn't look threatening until he's whooping your ass, in which case then you're worried as all hell.
I mean, the only thing that makes him look threatening is that Keanu Reeves does this really great job of getting this look on his face that he is determined.
Yeah, like the focus of his character is a big point of like fear amongst the mobsters. It's like a man of will, a man of focus.
His sheer force of will.
Yeah, and like that's what you feel. Like you don't feel afraid or scared. You feel like this man's on a mission and he's gonna accomplish it.
Yeah. So with that, as far as the basic general flow of this movie goes, starts off him getting his car from the Russian mob, where even then he gets up to the Russian mobster after this whole huge open scene where he, you know, kills everybody.
Totals his car.
He gets to the Russian mobster, and they have this moment where it's just like, look, I don't want to be killed by you, just take your car and go. And John Wick's like, great, I don't want to kill you, I just want my car. All right, peace. You know, and that's it. Like, it really does re-emphasize the point that John Wick just wants to be left alone. He just wants to put everything back to how it was, where he was living his nice, solitary civilian life, and that's that.
Which kind of brings us into our next clip, because there's a clear line between John and this monster that people know as John Wick, and Keanu Reeves actually talks about it a little bit in one of his interviews, and I'm here to play it for you real quick.
I think what we're doing in the second film is exploring more of the difference, or that line between John and John Wick. It's really made a point in the story, in investigating that, which, it's about the suit, it's about the life that he, in this story, reburies. He's trying to kind of protect John. John, the man who is a civilian, John, who's the man who's a husband, that life that is outside of the John Wick world, which is the assassin.
It's kind of the balancing, your personal life with your celebrity life when you're in the spotlight like that. And that's basically, I think, what he's trying to do is he has John, the person, and then John Wick, the persona, and he's using that persona to try and, bring back some normalcy. What's the word there? I don't know. Anyway, he's trying to bring back his civilian life, his regular life, that retirement that he wanted. And I think that gets emphasized a lot during this movie, that there are two very clear people there. There's John Wick, the civilian, who just wants to be left alone to grieve, and then John Wick, the sheer force of will.
Yeah, I think a part of the cinematography of this that made it really interesting was that you felt John Wick, you felt his character getting more and more tired as the movie progressed, and it felt almost like the John character was bleeding to death, and John Wick was all that was left towards the end. That's kind of like the direction that I felt the movie was flowing, and that it was kind of depicting throughout the entirety of the film.
Like his original, I don't think character is the right word to use here. I mean, character in the sense of, his personality, the things that make him, an individual and not this force of will, is slowly getting whittled down throughout the movie.
Yeah, like he's trying to hold on to it and trying to keep it, and like every instance where you think that he's done and is finally able to reset and recharge his civilian battery, somebody shoots at him.
Yeah. And I mean, this essentially continues on throughout the entire movie, and kind of the mitigating factor to start this is now that John, he's gone through the actions of John Wick 1, and he's come out of retirement, and now he kind of has to face the consequences and the repercussions from coming out of retirement, which we find a little bit more backstory that he was actually helped in his impossible task that they mentioned in the first movie to be able to retire. He was helped out by Santino D'Antonio, who's a Italian mob boss, basically the brother of one of the sitting members of the High Table. And there's a marker that he has that it's essentially a blood oath that says, I paid you this favor and you owe me an equal favor and you can't turn it away.
And the catch is that it's maintained by the Continental, which is apparently like the union of assassins. If you're an assassin, you're a part of the Continental. If you're not a part of the Continental, then you're a liability.
So essentially John gets called to task over this and says, we gave you a pass and we said that as long as you remained retired, you were never going to have to call in this marker. But now that you've come out of retirement, here it is. This is the task we want you to do. And he essentially gets tasked with another supposed impossible task, which is assassinating one of the sitting members of the High Table, which as they establish in this, it kind of goes assassins on the bottom level, or maybe mid-level, and there's the people that help them and work with them below them, but then you've got the Continental, and then one step above the Continental you've got the High Table, or maybe even almost parallel, symbiotic with
to a degree. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like there's more or less power, but it seems like that there's an understanding between the two, that without the union, the assassins would just go into chaos.
So essentially he gets tasked with taking out, a god, so to speak. I mean, not to the sense that it's, mythically powered or anything, but somebody that's so well protected and so powerful that, it's essentially a suicide mission. And he goes to do this eventually, because he's kind of forced into it. It's established that if he doesn't go do this task, then he's always going to be fighting for his life, and they will continue to come after him until he either does it or he's dead.
I mean, like, he approaches his buddy at the Continental, Winston, and is like, what can I do? And Winston's like, you gotta pay the toll. If you don't pay the toll, you're a forfeit. If you try to kill the toll maker, you're a forfeit. Because like
it's do or die, brother.
And then like Winston even gives him options like, well, you do it, you have options afterwards, but until that point, I can't do anything for you, bro.
So Keanu kind of takes John Wick takes the premise that he is going to go complete the task, but then he's also going to get revenge on this guy for making him complete the task.
Well, see, like, that's
to at least some degree.
That's thrown in there, but I don't think he actually would have. I think he would have just done it and left had the dude, like, not poked the bear afterwards. So, like, Antonio, he pokes the bear and says, John Wick, come back and do this task. And then he does the task, and he pokes the bear again, and John Wick's like, you stupid motherfucker. So John Wick goes through, it's essentially him completing this task, having multiple different groups of people pissed off at him at that point. But like only one person really knew what happened, and it was the 12, one of the members of the table, his protector, their protector, their protector, like, witnesses John Wick leaving the room and says, are you working? And John's like, yeah. I was like, having a good night? And John's like, yeah. Assassin talk. My award was killed. And so really there was just the one guy after
Cassian, played by Common.
Yeah, but really it was just the one guy after John at that point. If John had been...
There was Antonio's.
That's if D'Antonio hadn't. So I think this is kind of the point where D'Antonio, like, it points out how much of a dick he is.
Yeah.
I mean, you already know he's a dick. It's kind of
implied the moment you see him.
But so he hires John to kill the sitting member at the high table, who is also, spoiler, his sister.
Oh, shit.
And then immediately after it's confirmed that it's done, he sends assassins after John because, to actually quote him, what kind of a brother would he be if he didn't seek revenge on the person that killed his sister? Even though he hired him, it's like that, points out how much of a dick he is, that it's like, oh, well, I wanted her dead, but at the same time, I also want it to look like I'm getting revenge on the person that killed
I
her.
didn't want her dead.
So that when I take her seat at the high table, there's no questions about who killed her.
Yeah.
So...
And he was also assuming that she didn't leave her seat to someone else. Because that's how she got it, was their father died, and he willed it to her. So what about her will?
She never actually earned the seat. That was her coronation, was to the seat. So she didn't earn the seat. It goes on to the next person in the family line.
I thought that was at the end of the coronation, so she had been coronated.
No, that was her coronation.
So I thought she had the seat at that point.
No.
So it... either way, it's essentially, he's going to be taking the seat. He knows he's going to be taking the seat as long as she's dead. So he has her killed, but then sends assassins, particularly the assassin played by Ruby Rose. I think her name was Aries.
I don't know.
Something like that. Either way, she doesn't talk through the whole movie. She uses sign language, which is... a weird aspect to that character.
Yeah, we were trying to confirm, like, is she deaf? No, because she can hear people talking unless it's reading lips the entire time, but I don't think people were facing her every single time. It's okay, well, then is she mute? It's like, no, she was making noises when she fought, like really loud noises. She wasn't quiet the entire time. It was like,
unless it's like Oath of Silence.
Yeah, like Vow of Silence, or like was her tongue cut out because she's part of a assassin's group? We don't know.
I mean, I don't necessarily know if that adds anything to the character or if it distracts from the character. And that's one thing that bothered me, is that I couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. And I think just having that question of why is she using sign language through the whole movie kind of distracts a bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know what they were going for, and they were going for the old, like, 90s X-Men's vibrant colors and different styles to differentiate different characters. Like, this is her thing. She speaks in sign language, so she's very clearly a different character. Like, everyone has to have their own thing, John Wick dresses in all black and is a badass. That's his thing, and so, like, it's recognizable. But
I think they wanted, going, oh, we have a female assassin here. They wanted to differentiate from the female assassin that was in John Wick 1, that was the very mouthy, egotistical assassin, and have somebody that is, the calm, collected, but still kind of smarmy.
Yeah.
And that balances out the... calm, collected, and obviously nearly boiling over with rage that you get from Common.
Yeah.
And then having, John Wick, where he's not necessarily calm and collected, but very driven and focused.
Yeah, like, he never shows his rage for the most part until, like, at the very last moments of events, but, like, you can feel the rage inside.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a weird play, but I guess it's done to differentiate from the characters in the first movie.
As a female, I really appreciated not having her flirt with everybody.
Yeah.
She was just like, I'm a fucking badass. I'm a fucking badass. Fuck you.
Yeah, just doing my own thing.
There's still a little bit of flirtation that she has with John, but it's done in that sarcastic, I'm gonna kill you way.
It's like, you're cute, but I'm gonna kill you so good.
Right. It's like
when she pats him down.
Yeah. Let me pay you a compliment before I kill you.
Yes.
Like that sort of thing, and not let me flirt with you so that I can establish my character as
Right.
sexy.
I get really, really tired of female characters that are supposed to be badasses coming in contact with the main character and then just like becoming damsels in distress, tee-hee.
Yeah.
It's just...
We were actually discussing this after, coincidentally, Ruby Rose was in
Triple X.
Return of Vander Cage, and how, you know, her character in it, despite the fact that she is obviously the, you know, very sexy, you know, I guess in that movie it was sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And this movie it's the assassin. You know, I really appreciate the fact that when Ruby Rose takes on roles, one of the things that she does in all of those roles is she delivers all of that power and presence that you would want to see from a leading action star, but she does it in a way that doesn't have to be the hyper-sexualized female action star.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Ruby Rose always presents herself like in a way to where like she might look sexy to us, but she don't give a fuck because she's sexy to herself and she's just doing her own thing.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
like, you find me sexy, whatever, you motherfucker, I don't care.
Honestly, as much as you can say female perspective, you appreciate that. Male perspective, I appreciate that, because you follow the same formula for so long, and the formula starts to get really cliche.
Yeah.
So seeing something new and different, especially when it shows, hey, she can just be a badass.
Yes.
And she doesn't have to be,
doesn't need acknowledgement, doesn't need anyone else to like pat her on the ass, say she did a good job. You know?
She can be a badass and still wear more than 3 ounces of clothing.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I really appreciate from it in a lot of the roles that she's been playing lately. And I've
been becoming a huge Ruby Rose fan since like watching these few movies. Like I really admire her.
I read an interview with her where somebody asked her how she identifies her sexuality, and her response was she identifies it as present. Or something to that degree. And that, you know, she doesn't feel the need to portray herself in any particular way. And that leads to, you know, portraying herself in a way that is, you know, this person can perceive her as the sexy female lead, and this other person watching the exact same movie will perceive her as the powerful, you know, commanding female lead, and it opens it up for your own perception of how you want to view it. With that being said, in this particular movie, she tends to again play that smarmy, kind of egotistical opposite of Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because she wasn't around when he was active in the Assassin's world, or if she just thinks that she's better. I don't know.
I mean, so let's assume that her age is probably like in her mid-20s.
Yeah.
You know, like not actually, but like her character-wise, because the way that she portrays herself.
I think she actually is in her mid-20s.
Yeah,
No,
so
she was born in 86, like March 30th. So
Really? So she's 31.
Yeah, but like I feel like she's supposed to be in her mid-20s in this, in which case that means that she would have been active relatively recently, and if John Wick hasn't been active for the last minimum of 5 years, then that's probably outside of her purview of operations.
Yeah, or, you know, maybe there was a little bit of overlap, but not enough for her to ever have worked with him previously.
Yeah.
So,
or it's the whole like in the world of gymnastics, like there's like Mary Lou Renton, but there's the generation after that like idolized her and wanted to be her, and if they had ever gotten the chance to compete against her, they would have been ecstatic.
yeah.
So it's that same sort of, maybe she's like, John Wick's back, I can go head to head with him. You know, sort of egotistical, like she thinks like, okay, he's been out of the game for at least 5 years. I'm badass enough that, you know, maybe everything's now even, and I'm going to be able to take him on, and I'm going to be able to like be the one that beats John Wick.
So kind of like the Rocky Balboa factor.
Yeah, which throws in, you know, it actually, thinking about it that way, it kind of complements that train of thought with her being so sarcastic and smarmy to him that she's, trying to egg him on so that she actually can compete against him.
Yeah.
But she gets hired to kill John Wick, so she's after him. And then she kind of fails in killing him immediately after he succeeds in assassinating.
She tries to Zerg him with all of those
Zerg
dudes.
rush.
Let's throw a bunch of underlings at him and hopefully that'll work. And that fails obviously because he's MFing John Wick, and she realizes that she failed. She even says to her boss that she failed, and at that point he calls in the hit to puts out a bounty on John Wick's head. So literally every assassin that doesn't know better, I guess,
and
starts going after him.
This is one of my issues too, where they never really played that reverence again that they did in the first movie.
I think it's played in the sense that so few people went after him when that bounty was called in compared to the number of people that you see at the end of the movie.
That were available in general. Yeah, that's a good point.
So the reverence there is, he's got what, 5 people that go after him.
5, 6 maybe, yeah.
So, with that, 5, 6 people that are going after him when there's established potentially thousands, I think that kind of plays the reverence a little bit. But at that point, there's only so much that those people will put aside, which is why, there is a worry at the end of the movie. Essentially what happens is, John Wick gets fought by a bunch of these different assassins. He's basically fighting for his life at this point. Finds out that it's D'Antonio who's called in the bounty on him, so he goes after D'Antonio. He's in the Continental, where it's against the rule to commit any business, and he assassinates D'Antonio anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point,
which is like the best moment in the movie.
The Continental chooses to mark him excommunicado, which means that he, instead of just killing him off like they did to punish the female assassin in the first movie, they mark him excommunicado, which means he can no longer take contracts, he can no longer work with anybody that works with the Continental, he no longer has the protections of the Continental, so on and so forth. So basically he's by himself at this stage in it.
It's open season on John Wick.
Yeah.
Anybody can go after John Wick. They don't have to have a contract. They don't, anybody that he's pissed off over his entire career could potentially be coming after him at this point. And you see kind of the gravity of that at the end. He's told he's getting a 1 hour head start, and he's, limping off, hurt, basically, tired from fighting for his life for the past few days across half the world, and he's looking around and everybody's getting the text messages that he's now excommunicado, and he realizes that shit just got real, and he starts running.
Yeah, and that just didn't feel very John Wicky at the end either. It's like, really, he's running now for his life. Like, I don't feel that makes sense for the character.
It felt like, as you guys were saying, that there was John, the persona, and then John Wick. It felt like John Wick disappeared.
Yeah.
And what we were watching was John the person running, going, fuck.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, it plays very strongly on that John versus John Wick aspect of it, where, John Wick was just flagged excommunicado, so the only thing that's left is John.
Yeah.
Because everything that makes him John Wick is tied up in that world. The suits, the guns, the tailors, the car repair guys. The gold coins.
What I'm really concerned about right now is that now that if they do it well enough and they do a third film and he's excommunicado, does that mean that he's not going to fight in suits anymore? This makes me sad.
So,
of course, that would be what Tony focuses on.
I had mentioned, right after we watched this movie, I'd mentioned to Tony that I really wish the ending would have been that John Wick went back to the rubble of his house, broke up the concrete again, pulled out the box, got his guns, his suit, everything that he had in that box. Then they could have rolled the credits, and that would have given you the at least the understanding that John Wick knows he's going to be fighting for his life at this point.
Was there an after credits?
No.
No? Okay.
Did you ever watch the second Rambo movie when he's in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Now, I would have liked to have John Wick, like, in the rubble of his house, grabbing his tie from the muddy grounds, putting it on, and then, like, crawling slowly into the mud.
Man.
I could have seen that.
Oh, Tony.
Come on! just him reaching for, his tie and just pulling it against the mud and just putting it on and just disappearing into the background.
I could have seen that. I mean, the second movie didn't really... I don't think it emphasized the suit as an extension of his character as much. Yeah. Or maybe it just didn't stand out as an extension of his character as much because we'd already seen it in the first movie. And, even though he does visit the tailor and he gets the tactical suit made and, all of that sort of stuff, like, it just doesn't feel like as much of a extension because there was no separation from it. Where in the first movie you had John Wick wearing regular clothes and then he puts on the suit. And in the second movie, even when he's wearing regular clothes, his regular clothes is he has a turtleneck instead of a dress shirt and tie on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, he's still wearing a suit. So there's not that big separation like there was before to show that he's basically putting on a uniform. Yeah. As far as other stuff that was in this movie that I really appreciated, the little bit of, I guess, reunion that happened a couple of times. So you've got Keanu Reeves meeting up with Peter Stormare at the start. Peter Stormare was in Constantine with him, played the devil. He's the Vigo's brother, the Russian's brother at the start of it. So there's that where they even make some line, like some comment about the devil or something like that while he's there. So there's that little cameo. And then you got Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
And super, super happy to see Lawrence Fishburne as soon as he turned around. Although Lawrence Fishburne kind of put on some weight. He did.
And you know what? He's fucking Lawrence Fishburne. He can do what the hell he wants.
I mean, he didn't put on that much weight because he's wearing like 8 coats. So
he is bummed out. So like that could have been like a machete and a machine gun in his pouch.
Yeah, but it's actually really interesting. We were watching an interview before recording the podcast here where they were talking about Lawrence Fishburne, and Keanu is basically friends with him, and they said they wrote the part for Lawrence Fishburne, and then Keanu asked him, and Lawrence Fishburne, in the only way that he can, said, "Send me the script," and then basically accepted it the same day.
Yeah, and like the interview was kind of funny because Keanu was like, "Yeah, we're still buddies." I was talking to him. I was like, "Hey, did you watch John Wick?" And he was like, "Yeah, I liked it." And I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "You want to be in the next one?" And this is the moment where your best friend's like, "Yeah, put me in it with you." And then his response is like, "Yeah." And then Fishburne was like, "Send me the script." It's like, so even Fishburne as a professional is like, "We're friends."
Yeah.
But I still want to see the script before I okay anything first.
I think we actually have a clip of Keanu talking about working with Lawrence Fishburne again in this movie.
All right, yeah, we do. Let me play real fast.
Yeah, we had this role, the Bowery King, and Chad was right away, Lawrence Fishburne. And for me to have the chance to have, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, it was, he's such an amazing actor. And he and I have remained friends since we worked together on The Matrix. And so to get a chance to act with him is special. I mean, it's just amazing.
What's incredible is like you can kind of get a feel for it in these clips, but in the interviews that I've seen and the clips as well, like Keanu is so humble. It's crazy.
That, and you can tell that he really loves everything about these movies.
Yeah, I mean these movies, the people he works with, his character, like he really enjoys this.
They were talking about when they started working on John Wick 2, they wanted to do longer action sequences, and they wanted to stretch out everything, and he had to train for them. And they basically, you know, when they got greenlit on it, they were like, okay, great, here, Keanu's gonna go train. See you in 5 months.
So like,
you know?
So Tali was kind of saying, "Oh God," and I kind of agree with her on that. I actually liked the short combat sequences in the first movie because it felt more real.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Though in this one, the stairs. The stairs were beautiful.
There is one scene where John
Common
Wick
and Keanu.
are fighting on the stairs, and it's not like generic fantasy stairs. This is like it's like one person gets pushed off, and the other person kind of like falls along because of inertia. They're just constantly rolling down these stairs over and over again because
fighting on stairs, they're actually falling down the stairs, like trying to catch themselves, but still beat each other up. I mean, it's never one of those like weird things where the stairs don't seem to exist in the fight. It's like they literally like trip and like go thunk thunk thunk.
They're not doing overly dramatic rolls, and like although there's like small instances where like the stairs flatten out, you know, they fight some more, and then like one of them just trips and pulls the other one down. And they just keep rolling down the stairs.
I do like the realism of the fight scenes in this though, where you know you don't see the he pulled his punch, or it was shot at this angle to make it look like he didn't actually get hit or anything, because it's, you know, it's directed by stunt guys. So you know, you're watching this and it's like, oh, if you're getting hit, you're getting hit. I mean, the only thing that they did was, instead of putting squibs on everybody to have explosions right there, they did all of that like CG post where they could, so that when they were fighting with the guns and everything, they still had the flashes, but they didn't want to potentially blind or deafen people fighting that close quarter combat. So they used very small charges just so that they could sync up where the gunshots were. But everything, even the way that the gunshots are lined up, it's, you know, it's real. And the way people fall is real. The way, you know, somebody gets hit by a car, like the scene at the start of the movie where Keanu is sitting in his car and the car door's been ripped off, and then somebody T-bones the car and he doesn't have a seatbelt on, and it just throws him down to the ground. They actually shot that way. Like, Keanu in the car got T-boned, threw onto the ground, and they filmed it multiple times. So, you know, stuff like that. The fact that anywhere it's possible, the actors are actually doing their own stunts really makes it more realistic. But at the same time, in John Wick 2, some of those scenes drag on a little long.
But like, I understand what they're going for. It's a war that he's fighting now. It's no longer just like a personal war. It's a big war with big, you know, payoffs and tables. But just to have it just be so huge and just be a one-man army situation, like, I felt like had there been at least one or two more people with him, it would have been a little more acceptable. But it was just too much, too long, too dragged on. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the scenes were beautiful and they're really well, you know, directed, really well made, incredible fight sequences. It's just, it felt like it was more than necessary, and it felt like it was more than what John Wick would have done. John Wick, you know, in the first movie would be like, bam, 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 I'm out. You know, like, bam, bam, pull him into an alley, bam, 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 pull him further, bam, 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 switch weapons, bam. You know, it's like, it's really, really drugged.
And he never got to rest. Like, in John Wick 1, like, they showed him getting bandaged up, taking a nap, you know, like, recharging.
At the same time, they do kind of point out the fact that he's getting progressively more tired and worn down throughout the movie.
I mean, there was the flight from Rome to New York.
Yeah, that's like, what, 11 hours right there?
Oh, well, you know, after getting shot a couple dozen times.
Yeah.
Even if it was tactical, you saw those, like, you know, dinner plate bruises on his back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things here and there that kind of hint at the fact that he is actually getting more tired and more worn down, and, you know, he hasn't had an opportunity to rest. And I think that kind of adds on to the danger of the situation for him. But at the same time, entertainment wise, the shorter action scenes, I think, are more rewarding.
Yeah, it feels more natural. So we're down to the cusp of it, to the nitty gritty. Tali, I kind of brought you in on this because you weren't as huge of a fan as Steve and I were, and we kind of wanted like an opposition opinion. So like these two films, like how do you feel about them, and how would you actually score them? Since you weren't here for the first one, I don't want to score for both 1 and 2.
Well, for me, I don't like action films in general. Well, I do, but I'm picky.
Okay.
I do not like gore, and I do not like watching people get their arm broken or anything like that, because it tweaks me out, and it actually makes me like have sympathy pains.
Okay.
So that's why I spent half the movie hiding. But the writing and all of that is fantastic. I really like these films. If I could cut out a lot more of the action parts, like the blood, the guts, the fighting, because I get bored.
All right.
But I don't know if I'd watch them again either. Like, I liked them, and I might recommend them to people who really like action. Like, I think that they're top of the crop for action. But for me personally, I'd give them like a 5 or a 6.
On both of them?
Yeah. Like,
all right.
Wouldn't watch them again. But
see, for me, I don't necessarily think that it's like the action is kind of secondary to me. Like the first one, super basic premise. They killed his dog, and he just revenge, And at that point, it was a very, very basic premise, and it worked amazingly well. And you kind of started to get introduced to all of the aspects of this world enough to be curious. And the second one, I think the parts that were the most rewarding for me is where they expanded on his world.
Yeah.
And not so much the action. I mean, the action was expected.
it overwhelmed it for me, though.
Yeah.
I felt like I lost a lot of the thread of the film in those really long action sequences.
It was expected that there was going to be action, but I wish that the action would have been more tailored towards the length of scenes that they had in the first movie, where it was, just enough to emphasize and really drive home how badass he is, but not so long that you're sitting there going, okay, I've now lost count of the number of people that he's killed. And this is just like, stare at the watch, try and figure out how much longer this is going to go on. And then it's like, oh, okay, we've been watching 12 minutes straight of gunfight here. They could have probably shrunk that down to 3 minutes and given us a little bit more story and backstory, and I think that would have made the world a little bit more rich.
Which I would have enjoyed a lot more, because the writing is fantastic. But
yeah. And in that respect, I would have to... I think originally when we reviewed John Wick, I give John Wick like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, same.
And I think I would have to give John Wick 2 a 7. I do think it opens it up for interpretation a lot. The driving factors behind the movie, the way that he acts his character, John versus John Wick, and stuff like that, to the extent that I'm probably going to have to watch it a couple of times to really kind of figure everything out on it. But if I had to rate it just face value right now off of what I saw the first time and just thinking about it afterwards, it's gonna be a 7, 7.5 maybe. It's not bad, but I don't think it's sold me as well as the first movie.
Yeah. So I have to say, this film sequence reminds me very much, and don't destroy me for this, of Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Where the first movie, much like Fast and the Furious, was a crime drama with some action. And then, we skip Fast and Furious 2 because that had nothing to do with the series. And then, the fourth Fast and the Furious is now we're in an action movie with action. And that's what John Wick felt like, where, it kind of lost its core. It became an action movie with a little touch of crime drama in the background. And I think the crime drama was really what made the first movie so interesting, because it was the foundation of the film. and then everything else was a draw afterwards, and like they kind of went away from that. And in the video that we were watching, they were talking about there's two ways you can go. You can either remake the same film, Taken 1, 2, and 3, or
Saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
or you can go bigger and better, Triple X and Fast and the Furious.
or there's option number 3, which is go deeper.
And they were trying to go deeper, but they went deeper and bigger, and they should have just focused on the one.
I think the problem in their case with going deeper is that they went deeper into a world that's filled full of killers, assassins. And when you go deeper into that, if you go too deep, you're introducing too many assassins and too many people that can put contracts on you and too many people that are trying to kill you at any turn. And I think, that was really the fault here, was they went, instead of going deep and narrow focus on John, they went deeper into the world and super wide with it, where they introduced all these other aspects and characters and stuff that, instead of having that super basic revenge plot, obviously you can't have that in the second one because they didn't kill his dog twice,
Thank God. I almost killed Tony when I was like, they're going to kill the dog. He's like, just watch.
But so back to my scoring. If this were on its own and without the first film, I would have given it like a 6.5. Fun movie, not bad. Wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah.
But together with the first John Wick, and of course bonus points for Keanu Reeves, I give it a low 7. I mean, I want to watch it again. I want to see if I can discover more things in the movie that I might have missed. I want to see if there is more, Mega Man Wily-esque assassins that I didn't pick up on. Like, is there a Blade Man and a Guts Man in there? Because, because they're all very characteristic here.
I am curious to watch the movie again, consciously thinking about different interpretations.
Yeah.
Particularly in the way that he's performing, the way that the other assassins are reacting to him, stuff like that. I feel like if I consciously think about those things, I may get something different out of the movie, and that may change the overall result.
Yeah, I mean, like, just going back in my mind and just cutting the action sequences in half and just thinking about the really dramatic sequences where he's, like, killing the sister or the high table, like, that was a really good scene, and I thought that was a really poignant scene. And just like those small talking bits where, like, in a lot of movies, like, you just don't want to see him talking around a lot, but like with John Wick's character, it was a very important thing.
He says so little that when he does talk, it's poignant.
Exactly. Yes, it's reasoned and important, and you want to listen.
Which is a lot more than you can say for dialogue in 99% of action movies, because normally the dialogue in action movies is basically, all right, what does our character say here to get into the next gunfight? Whereas in
how many
John
catchphrases
Wick,
can we shove into this movie?
Yeah. Whereas with John Wick, 0 catchphrases, and it's any dialogue that's there is basically John Wick trying to figure out how not to get into the next gunfight. And that does, again, emphasize the fact that he's being forced into all of this. So I don't know, I'm assuming my rating of this movie will change in the future. I wish that this movie would stand on its own more.
Oh, it felt like a sequel.
It's
you have to see John Wick 1, and I feel like when there is going to be a John Wick 3, to get any satisfaction out of the film, you're going to have to watch that one.
Yeah.
But if you drop those two sides, it's ugh.
Like one of the greatest anthologies out there, I think, is Die Hard, and that's because every movie stands on its own.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to have seen the prior movies in order to go, oh, John McClane, he's a LAPD cop or a New York cop or this or that, and here's the situation that he's in.
The original Turtles trilogy. You
Yeah.
don't have to see any of them, in succession.
No, pick one. They all stand on their own. Like, even though they're sequels, they are a continuation of the story. There's enough setup in the movie by itself that you don't have to watch the prior movies. And I think that's a huge fault of sequels these days, or trilogies, is that they don't try and make them stand on their
They
own.
feel like an
enough.
act two.
Yeah.
Like,
And everybody knows that when you're watching a play, you've got your opening scene and your closing scene, or closing act. Those are really the ones to watch. Act 2 is in there to
fill it.
Yeah.
Make
Split
the
the
tickets more
difference.
expensive.
Exactly. So, that being said, I would recommend this movie to anybody that watched John Wick and enjoyed it. I do think it is a good continuation. If you haven't seen John Wick 1, you would be doing yourself a disservice to watch this movie without seeing it, because there's
not
a
gonna make
lot
sense.
of unanswered questions that you're going to be presented with right away.
And just because it's been floating around in my head for the last 2 weeks, go watch The Accountant.
Oh my God, yes.
Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. It's not relevant to anything that we're talking about right now, other than Assassins. But go watch The Accountant.
Like, okay, as I said, I don't like fighting. That's an awesome fucking movie. Like, I cheered watching that movie.
I can't speak highly enough of The Accountant.
As someone who has their accounting degree, like, I fucking love this movie. Like, my sister is also an accountant. Like, she does the books, and she is obsessed with serial killers. Like, Tony met her and, like, turned to me and was like, your sister needs to watch The Accountant. I'm like, how did I not think of that?
To be fair, if she was a pediatrician that liked Barbies, I would have told her
Well,
that
yes,
her sister needs to watch
but,
The
like,
Accountant.
my sister needs to see this movie. It is, oh my God, like, one of my favorite movies
There's
now.
very few movies that I recommend to Tony that he watched that he actually thanks me for recommending afterwards, and The Accountant was one of those. I mean, usually...
Well, I thank you as well.
Usually it's like, I recommend a movie to him, or we set up movies for the next podcast or something, and, he'll message me a little while later asking why I hate him.
Yes.
Like that's the usual kind of play on this. So having him actually turn around and say, that was a really good movie.
Yeah, the Accountant to me was like Spy to Steve.
Ben Affleck deserves an Oscar.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
All right, that's my 2 cents.
So
That's my nickel.
I think that's going to wrap it up for John Wick 2. I think the general consensus is go out and see it, but only if you watch John Wick 1 first. And keep an eye out for John Wick 3, because hopefully it's going to answer all those other questions that we have.
Yes. Is there a final stage? Does he have to fight Dr. Wily? I mean, this is very important to me.
I mean, there has been a ton of mini bosses. That's all I gotta say. Where's the boss fight?
The right music hasn't started. There hasn't been a pile of heal packs yet.
Not a
For save.
single 8-bit tone throughout that entire movie yet. So it's crossing my fingers
All right.
in anticipation.
All right, give us our goodbye, Steve.
If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can hit us up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/abovetheairwaves or on our website at abovetheairwaves.com. Once again, consider supporting us on Patreon if you want us to keep doing what we're doing.
And if you're a long-time listener, this is for you. Fuck Clarence.
Fuck Clarence.
Fuck him so much.
He wasn't. Well, yeah, no, he was that bad. Never mind.
Good night.
Take it easy.
Hear the clock tick-tock and you went in for the good times. About a measure past the part that brought you here. Shrug it off and drink it down, because this beat is playing somewhere else. So you tell yourself